Ayo, back at it again with another video. Thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. So I've been meaning to talk about this for a little bit now. The uncommitted. There's been a movement within the Democratic primary base to vote uncommitted because of Biden's stance on Israel and Palestine, Israel Gaza. So Minnesota, which is a very deep blue state. If you want to know how deep blue Minnesota has been the past couple decades, let's just look at the election of 1984. If you are wondering how blue Minnesota is, they were the only state to vote for Walter Mondale in 1984. Obviously, Mondale won 13 votes, 10 from Minnesota and 3 plus Washington, D.C. The only state, D.C. is not a state, the only state that voted for Mondale in 1984 was Minnesota. Just goes to show you how deep blue Minnesota has been the past couple of decades. Very blue state. It's voted Democrat for a very long time. In '84 and every election since that I'm aware of. However, in the primary, there was a 19%. So roughly 19% of DFL. If you're unsure what DFL is, that is Democratic Farmer Labor. In Minnesota, there is, in most states there's a Democratic Party, but in Minnesota there's DFL, Democratic Farmer Labor. Roughly 19%, or according to CBS, 1 in 5. 1 in 5 is technically 20%, but if you look at it, so this was 64% reporting. Biden has 69%, which is pretty nice. And then 20% for uncommitted, and Dean Phillips, who's from Minnesota, only got about a little less than 16,000 votes. So uncommitted got more votes than the dude who was from Minnesota. Obviously, Biden won the primary in that state. It's not, the point isn't to win as uncommitted. The point's more to make a point. So let's go into this. So 19-20% voted uncommitted. So a lot of the vote coming in the Twin Cities area. You have a lot in this area, the greater Twin Cities metro market. You got, looks like Duluth up here. There's some pretty strong performance up here. I don't know what that is, but that's close. That's probably that's close to the North Dakota border, if I know my geography correct. But most of the effort was concentrated in the Twin Cities. Uncommitted captured 20% or more of the vote in 4 counties: Hennepin, Ramsey, Anoka, and Rice, including 15% in St. Louis County, where Duluth is located. Okay, so that's up here. And 16.3% in Olmsted, which I don't know where that is. That's either down here or that's the one that's up here. I'm not sure. But the metro market of Twin Cities is the biggest area. Majority of DFL, Democratic Farmer Labor voters, chose uncommitted in more than 100 of the state's 4,100 voting precincts. Uncommitted also captured a majority in 2 state house districts, and in 15 additional districts, the campaign notched at least 1/4 or 25% of DFL vote. Biden won, but 19% uncommitted, that's a sizable portion. That's essentially 1 in 5. I mean, CBS was correct that it was essentially 1 in 5. All told, about 46,000 opted for uncommitted, a surprisingly strong showing for a relatively last-minute effort with a stated goal of 5,000. So obviously, very much over the 5,000 vote margin that they wanted. In Michigan, there was 100,000 votes, or 13% of the Democratic primary electorate there. The thing with Minnesota is Minnesota is a deep blue state, so 20% of the electorate of your base unsatisfied with you as your nominee, that's very telling. I don't think Biden cares, because when has he ever cared about what his left flank has to say? He's been a corporate centrist for his entire career. But the thing that I thought that would have more effect on the campaign, the Biden campaign, was the almost 100,000 votes in Michigan. Because Michigan is a very purple state. If you look at Michigan in 2016, they voted Republican. But in 2020, voted Democrat. So in Minnesota, you're going to have almost 20% of your base. That's obviously concerning. But the 100,000 votes in Michigan is more than the margin of victory in 2016 and in 2020. So the fact that Minnesota, very deep blue state for the past couple of decades, and our our politics, and if you want to know how deep blue Minnesota has been over the past couple of decades, again, just look at the election of 1984. This map pretty much sums it up pretty well. I mean, no matter what you look at it, Mondale did not do good. I mean, 13 votes against 525. That's a landslide of just insane proportions. So, obviously, there was votes across the country, but the only state that Democrats won in 1984 was Minnesota. And a state that's been consistently and reliably blue for you at the national level, I think you would be concerned if 20% of your base is dissatisfied with you as a candidate. However, I don't think Biden cares because, again, I don't think he's ever cared what his voters have to say. He's too busy basically trying to persuade moderate voters and at the expense of progressive left voters. So 19% uncommitted in Minnesota. The point wasn't victory, the point was sending a message, and I think almost 20% of your base voting in against your policies is a glaring example that Biden's going to have to deal with going into the election season. I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm going to see you all in the next video. Deuces.